I'm not someone's guru, meaning I'm not Jesus Christ or the Messiah, and like my word isn't the word of God. So it's very much a partnering approach with patients. So I'm trying to always be cognizant of, you know, am I uh, putting my bias on what I think is a good life to a patient versus what's in their own best interest. And so it's really trying to take a step back and say, this person's goal is this. It might be something that I would never want for my own life, but it's like, if that's what they want, how can we help them achieve that in the safest, healthiest manner?
Hey, it's Jesse Garza with Premier Leadership Podcast, the place where we have real conversation with real leaders. Today, I'm excited to have as my guest Dr. Dan Fosselman with Professional Integrative Care. Dan, how are you today? Thanks for joining.
Greg, thanks for having me. Look forward to talking to you.
Great, great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing what you're doing in the integrative care space and the direct care space as well. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about your story and what inspired you to get into this and start professional integrative care?
Yeah, so the background starts just acting as a patient. So when I would go into my traditional primary care visits in the past, the doc would pop in, say, "You're the only healthy person that I have on the schedule." They would say nothing that provided any insight to my health, leave the room, and then I'd get a bill from insurance for a couple $100. And, for me personally, I just said, I want to create a practice that I would want to go to as a patient. And so, me being fitness oriented and caring about the performance component for strength and conditioning stuff that I've been doing and competing in sports, nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress management, all of those things are really important. And so, it's just continuing to educate yourself on health adjacent topics and figuring out how can I deliver the highest quality care to a patient and what does that mean. And so it's a lot of outside reading on what is a physician supposed to be. And they're supposed to be a teacher or a scholar. And the best type of teacher or scholar is someone that actually does self experimentation and tests on themselves and tries to impart wisdom onto a patient as well as they're aware of what information is out there in the literature.
I like that you said outside reading. So a lot of times, like basically, that's just kind of outside the box, going outside the norm. So I think there's a lot of value people do that in their practices and their profession.
Absolutely.
What's the one thing that you would say that sets yourself apart from others? Because I'm sure there are other integrative, holistic, and direct care physicians out there doing practice.
I took this from one of my mentors, Paul Chek, and it's that I'm not someone's guru, meaning I'm not Jesus Christ or the Messiah, and like my word isn't the word of God. So it's very much a partnering approach with patients, and each person has very individual personality and they just have different goals. So I'm trying to always be cognizant of, you know, am I uh, putting my bias on what I think is a good life to a patient versus what's in their own best interest. And so it's really trying to take a step back and say, this person's goal is this. It might be something that I would never want for my own life, but it's like, if that's what they want, how can we help them achieve that in the safest, healthiest manner? So it's really trying to be patient focused. And I know a lot of people say that, but I really try to implement that within my own practice.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm sure there's not a lot of that out there. Like, all that gurus that just say like they're just trying to like impose their philosophy and their perception of how things should be. So definitely refreshing to hear and see that somebody's doing it a little differently. What have been some of the challenges that you've encountered as you've built your business or your practice and tried to scale out?
I'd say the biggest challenge is I didn't want to do it. What I mean by that is, um, I want to be a good father and a husband first. I was well aware of having started my own practice and the commitment with medicine is it just takes time and energy. And I always had the concern, like, if I'm putting in weekends, 80-hour weeks, 100-hour weeks, like, how is that going to impact the people around me? So this might be a conceited statement, but I felt like, from a traditional business value proposition, when it comes to being the complete package and being able to offer multiple services to people, I had the skill set to do that in any context. And a lot of that came from continuing education post graduation. So it's like seeking what information patients actually want. So if there's a trending topic in healthcare, I believe me as a physician, I'm someone's chief medical officer, and they are the CEO of their body and their health. So I'm operating as a subject matter expert. So I should generally have more information on a topic than a patient. Well, one of the challenges in today's environment is health information is readily available. And, one of the things we talked about beforehand was just AI's impact is people go on to Open Evidence or Chat GPT, and they can be almost as educated as the provider on a specific topic. But what they're not as good doing is looking at someone in a holistic context. So, it's all based on a prompt, and maybe they're not asking the right question to get the most appropriate answer in that setting. So, it's continued learning. I mean, I think for all people is just greatly important.
So always be learning. That's definitely one of my philosophies as well. Like always be moving forward, improving. Good to hear. You mentioned the work life balance and the family? How's that worked out for you?
I asked my wife. It's This has changed. I mean, being married is one thing, having kids is a completely separate thing. And I always talk about this concept of minimum effective dose. And so I just try to block off time where I know I am just with my wife or I'm just with my kids. And to me, that's better than most people where they're trying to multitask and compartment. So when I pick up my kids from school and then I come home, it's dad time. There's time at night where it's me being a husband and we're not sitting in front of TV or cell phones. It's just like I try to intentionally connect with each of them or my kids and my wife on a daily basis. Do I wish it was more time? Yeah. Do I wish I wasn't as stressed out entering into that time? I do, but you can really only do one thing at one time. Um, it's as good as I can do in startup mode, but like the way I always think is it's a long-term goal. And so I don't project that I'm going to get that in the next 3 years, but I might have that opportunity when I'm 45, whereas some people never get that opportunity to have the ability to have choice and freedom.
It sounds like you're really focused on being 100% present when it's family time, it's family time. There's no work that kind of bleeds over.
And vice versa. I mean, it's a trade-off from a spouse. Like when I'm with a patient, I try to be 100% present with them. If I have a distraction in that setting, they're going to know I'm not connected to them in that moment.
Very, very profound. Do you have a team or is it just a kind of a one man
So I have staff. So I have an office manager, and then I have clinical support currently. And I'll probably be bringing in a nurse practitioner in historical settings where I was the chief medical officer. I had I think 5 clinicians. I've probably 2 physical therapists, 6 nurses, a bunch of strength and conditioning staff as well. So I've operated in very large teams, practices of 18 providers to this current environment. That's one. It's myself as a provider and then some of the support staff.
And like myself, I know that you have the military background. So what leadership principles guide you as you're leading this team?
Yeah, for me, it's the balance of how do you have standards and provide your staff with the freedom to make decisions on their own. One thing that I was talking to an attorney who is an entrepreneur as well, and he made the comment that freedom sometimes has to be earned. And I think that was the mistake I made initially is like typically when you're starting with a person, you want to have a pretty tight leash and then the standards are the standards. And then once you kind of see their skill set, you can loosen the reins. So with this startup, and maybe all startups, is there's not always the SOP or kind of the doctrine that's available that you can just say, do this. And you have to create some of that. So the learning or the mistake I think I made was maybe not being intentional enough about what is the standard for some of the staff I had when they came on. And I underappreciated how much thought I should have put into that before onboarding someone.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I can certainly relate as well. You kind of sometimes make the mistake that, everyone's at the same level or maybe even at the level that you're at and you just expect them to just like take things and run with it on their own. It's not always like that. So you kind of have to meet people where they're at, right?
Yep. You got to give them a fair opportunity to show their strengths. And it's uncommon for that to happen.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. What are your the benchmarks and goals that you'd like to have met within the next few months to a year?
Yeah, so the from a growth standpoint, I just look at adding on 5 new members per month. So one thing I was pretty intentional about was some of the financial things. When I opened this business, I initially knew I was going to be cash flow positive, and I put kind of objective metrics on when I would make hiring based on meeting certain revenue standards. So, the goal is to continue to add on 5 people per month, and I beat that goal every single month by 2 to 3, which has been great. You reach things faster, but with fast growth comes you got to change and more work on the back end. So it's kind of that delicate balance between definitely don't invest any money in marketing because you're already meeting these goals. It's don't get greedy and try to get there too quick. Otherwise, the whole system just breaks. So other KPIs you talked about is really from as a provider and outcomes oriented physician, it's coming up with those own metrics too. So I had to ask the question is how do I objectively know I'm a good physician? And really the primary thing I look at objectively is a patient's body composition. So if someone is getting leaner and putting on muscle and their visceral adipose tissue fat around the organ is decreasing, well, 99% of the time, almost all their other labs get better too. So that's the kind of the KPI from a health. And then I also do subjective metrics of how do you feel about your health? And I put those out to patients every 6 months just to see, are we actually getting people healthier over time?
And do you feel like you're meeting those metrics and benchmarks?
Uh,
Nice. And you mentioned that you don't do any marketing, which is interesting, like especially with a direct care model. Like, what is it all just word of mouth or?
Yep. So I did. So I had a good salesman tell me that, if I had a startup business, I would fail if I didn't do digital marketing in that setting. Spent about $40,000 on digital marketing. I'd say 10,000 of that was fraud and 30,000 of that was wasted money. So, I mean, they come out, they'll make you a stock image social media post that don't show what the brand really represents. They created microsites that were SEO optimized, but really it just increased the confusion and complexity because people couldn't find the main website because it was buried beneath these crappier ones. And 100%, well, I track how do patients come into the office, and 100% is word of mouth. So you want to get involved in your community. You want to get out there. And the most important thing is you want to provide high quality care to patients. And when you do that, they will tell their friends because you have differentiated yourself from normal healthcare and you will build up your patient population very quickly.
Right. Yeah, it's probably pretty nice not to have that expenditure as well.
Very nice.
Yeah. How can well what first of all, what advice would you oh no, let me back up and get ahead of myself. Got us switching gears a little bit with what we see in the news happening today. We talked about AI a little bit. I want to get into that, but also with you see like the latest headlines this week have been get ready for your healthcare premiums to increase in the coming year. How do you see direct care in your practice specifically fitting into that landscape?
People aren't dumb, and what they like is low cost and high quality. And so direct primary care is a reasonable alternative solution. The people that I think are actually leading the front on this is CrossFit. So CrossFit now has their own independent catastrophic insurance policy. So it's like a collective insurance pool. People that are doing CrossFit, they're taking positive health behaviors. And I think people always need insurance for catastrophic events. So, I'm not a hospital. So if you go out and have, a motor vehicle accident with multiple areas of trauma throughout your body, I'm not the best person to take care of you. You need to go to hospital and get that care. So I don't think that need is ever going to go away. But the question becomes, how am I actually going to get healthcare at a reasonable cost? And you're going to see a lot more cash pay alternatives that at the end of the day are probably providing a lot more value for your dollar. So I only see this kind of sector of the medical industry to continue to grow. And when you talk about from a provider perspective, I spend an hour with each one of my patients where the average appointment time is 7 minutes. So, that leads to more administrative burden when you're dealing with billing and coding and collections and accounts receivable. It just creates unnecessary stress in this environment versus a simpler model.
Yeah, makes complete sense. And how do you see AI impacting your practice? Do you have any concerns, or do you see it as a positive?
To me, so far I only see positives. So again, open evidence is going to be, it's like chat GPT for medicine. So it's more rapid access to information. So I can provide links to studies to patients, provide primary resources where historically, even if you were using up to date, you didn't have the ability to do that rapidly. From a operation standpoint, there's AI dictation, virtual scribes now. I've used some of them, and some are awesome. They're doing a heck of a lot of work for you and putting things in simplified forms. And other ones were providing me with unusable content as a provider. So it was a waste. You know, I tend to be net optimistic. When it comes to workflow, it's going to improve patient physician experience. And then you're also going to have rapid access to more quality information. So people are getting standard of care at all times, when in the past, people are still practicing on information that's 20 to 30 years outdated. So I'm hopeful that it kind of improves the quality of care and it improves the patient provider encounter over time. From a even back end workflow, there's a lot of things coming out about virtual nurses, schedulers, and it's all AI based, that are kind of decreasing this human capital component, which in theory, as an employer, should reduce expenses over time, allowing us to invest in other things that are actually providing care to the patient. So, from my seat, I am net optimistic, because at the core of care, it's just a human caring for another individual. And I'm uncertain. I don't think that's replaceable by AI. Like, you're still going to need that human interface. But whether it's a physician or even a counselor that has access to medical information, I hate to say this, like, I'm unbothered by that. So, like, I think there's always going to be a place where humans need to take care of other human beings, and that's what primary care should be.
Yeah, absolutely. The conversations I've had with other providers and physicians, like pretty much the same. It's never going to replace the human connection aspect of care. But yeah, you can at least be open to it and the possibilities and how it can possibly leverage and your teams and kind of amplify what you're doing. I've heard like nothing but like upside from others. That's very interesting. It's going to be exciting to see what comes our way, and it's rapidly changing. And this has been a great discussion so far. Where can people reach you or connect with you if they want to reach out directly?
And our website is professionalintegrativecare.com. There's links to do that. I'm on LinkedIn. I try to stay off all social media as much as I can. So our practice administrator monitors that. So you can reach out to us. I'm sure I'll get the message, but reach out just directly on LinkedIn.
Awesome, awesome. And then I'll make sure that's in the show notes and description. And I just have one last question for you before I let you go. Is what what's the one piece of advice that you would give any physician looking to follow in your footsteps or set up a similar practice?
Based on this conversation, it's just read diversely. So most of the time we get siloed in our education. So if you're in medicine, you're reading your medical textbook, read broadly. So whether that's business, spirituality, being in the military strategy has greatly influenced my thinking, and some of the courses they put out there are excellent. Anthropology, psychology, philosophy. And it's like, the more perspective you gain, the more you can connect with other human beings. So just read broadly and speak with people and seek to understand them a little bit better.
Great, great, love it. Like always be expanding. Well, it's been like I said, it's been a great discussion. A lot of insight gained here. Everyone, Dr. Dan Fosselman, Professional Integrative Care. Dan, thank you for being on today. I wish you nothing but the absolute success and best in what you're doing.
Thanks, Jesse. Good luck with your show too.
Thank you.